My name is Patrick Twohy, and I'm a Jesuit priest, and I've been with the Tulalip people now for 12 years, with Swinomish, Lummi, and the city here on the coast. And before then, I was in the Colville Res for 11 years, in Nespelum and Keller and Inchlium. So that was my first time on the reservation, except when I was younger, I had 2 summers on reservations, Colville Res and over in Fort Belknap, Montana. Mm-hmm. So that was my first experiences when I was younger. Growing up in Yakima, I was aware of the Yakima tribe. Of course, they're a powerful presence in the valley, even more so now, I think. And when I was growing up, things were much more hidden. The tribes now have so much more political presence within valley politics. Growing up, I knew they were there. One of my best friends was Ronnie Alney. I played basketball with him. Oh. But I never averted to the fact that he was Indian or was from the Alney family. I didn't know what that meant. It's just that he was just one of the guys that we played basketball with, and I'd met his mother, but I never really had a chance to explore with him his family ties, his people. Before that, my time was pretty much standard Jesuit training, which is quite a long training in studies, because most of us are teachers, so most of us are geared to be teaching high school or university level, and they want us all to have quite a bit of school. So I was doing that for many years. Finally, I was ordained in '70, came back to the Gonzaga University for 2 years, and then I went out to Nespelum for 1 summer, and I never came back to the university. I just, something said inside of me that this is where I wanted to stay, if the people would have me stay. I'm just part of that long line of Jesuits that was from the 1840s on, and the only reason they came over from Europe was to be with the Native Americans. That was their primary thought, was to be with the native peoples. However, everybody else was hot on their heels from Europe, so the immigration was just pouring in. Very interesting things historically, like the first idea for Gonzaga University in Spokane, its inception as an idea was as a university for Native Americans, with junior colleges out, like up in Omak and over Montana. So it was quite a big dream, but with the extraordinary influx of miners and settlers, and all these waves were coming in, and the U.S. Army was raising hell, and all the vigilante groups. There was just a big amount of activity going on that was very confusing to Native peoples, caused enormous suffering, and the Jesuits were right in the middle of it, for better or for worse. And I'm just part of that. I knew I belonged to that, and I didn't get to it right away, but I'm sure glad I finally did. And I think now, gradually, we have so many work, like with Seattle University, Gonzaga University, Seattle Prep, Bellarmine, all these schools in Spokane and Portland. But I feel like even in my own little small group of Jesuits here and in Alaska, the impetus and the concern and the desire to be with Native peoples is very strong. And I think that's been reborn a lot since the 70s. So I'm encouraged by that. many of the younger men, instead of wanting to, be a university professor at Gonzaga or somewhere else, would rather be out, out with the people. So
wow,
maybe
that's
we're
great.
we're getting back to roots again.
Yeah, back to the reason for coming here in the first place.
Yes, I did, and I
Literature.
taught high school for 3 years in Tacoma, Bellarmine, and that was great. It was very fine. I thought of going back to it, but I just was led somewhere. I feel like I was led somewhere else.
Where was it you said you first went to? Nespelem or Colville?
Nespelem was my first place in 73. And that was a time when, as you remember, when I just dropped into the stream then, and I had no idea of the vast historical continuity, except very vaguely. But right then, of course, that was the rebirth of native people saying, we're here, we're not gone, we're alive.
Did you choose to go there, or did you just get sent there?
I chose to go there. I think it had been always somewhere in the bones, somewhere in there. But when I finally got there, I was supposed to just be there 3 months and then come back to Gonzaga. When I got there, I began to feel something about a solidarity with the people, and knowing that they had this relationship with Jesuits for many years, and that if I wasn't there, no one would be there. And if I went back to Gonzaga, there was 40 Jesuits at Gonzaga. So I had the sense that I would like to stay with this and honor this friendship, though it wasn't easy in the 70s for me, because I was new, and it was AIM time, and there was a lot of feeling about church and about white people. And here I am, I was primary target. Sometimes I felt like I had a bullseye, painted, except I'd go to meetings and they would just really go after the church and really go after the government, of course, and after non-Indian. And then after that, and I'd be getting lower and lower in my chair, but then at the end of the meeting they'd say, "And Father, would you say the grace now? We'd like to have something to eat." So I was always going like, it's like getting, but I began to realize that this is just something that has to come out, and it just roars out at times. And I happen to be standing there, and so I get hit with it, but it isn't really aimed at, I didn't feel like it was aimed at me personally. It's bigger than me by a long shot.
Right.
And so I began to just hang on to that these are my neighbors, these are my friends. And what held me most was the old-timers, because they were able to show me that somehow they had put worlds together. They were old enough, well over 60, 70s, 80s, 90s. And as I began to be able to sit by them and listen to them, both the people that followed the ancient life ways, and some just followed Catholic ways, some followed both. Whatever it was, whenever I was with them, I was in a secure place. And they made me feel like I was okay, I had a place. Like, don't go away. You may get punched around a bit, but don't go away, because it's a relationship of respect. And so that's, I think, what held me. As many times I wondered, well, maybe I should just leave the people alone or go away. And the priest ahead of me said, that's the best thing to do, you shouldn't stay. Let the people alone, let them go back to the old life ways, which was the swing then for sure among the young. And so I had to I had to weigh all that. And people were saying Indian is this and Indian is that. Well, being totally ignorant, I wasn't sure what was authentic and what wasn't.
Mm.
But it was the old timers that finally, after about 8 years, I felt like I have some idea now what Indian is. I have a sense of what it is now. And that gave me more confidence to go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that appears to me right away is that the challenge facing your tribe is enormous, in that you are acquiring a lot of wealth. And with the wealth, I felt like you're doing primary values rather well, in the sense you've taken care of the elderly, you've done these beautiful places for the elderly, you have programs for them, and you're also pouring tremendous amount of money into the young, and tremendous amount of money into education. So that it's rare for me to have been at a tribe where somebody, if they want to do education, it's unlimited. The door's open, the tribe's behind you. And you have a lot of people in education to help boost you along. So to me, the tribe has lived primary values very well. Really, they're old values.
Mm-hmm.
Economically, you've created a lot of jobs, and the possibility of more and more jobs as you develop. You're becoming one of the wealthy tribes, probably in America, certainly in the Northwest. There's a lot of kidding about that, between tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Now when I'm up at Swinomish, they're always kidding. The guys are telling me, you wealthy Tulalips. But you're big tribes. You're spread out. So the social dynamics to me are extremely difficult.
Mm.
You have more and more people moving back. You have these mainline families here, which you all know each other, you're all related. And then you have people coming back that many of the old-timers say, I don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recognize them. Because people may have been gone a long time. Then you've got young people that have gone off to school wanting to come back and move into positions of leadership and helping the community. Only those positions are held by people already. So there's always that not just this tribe, but every tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a lot of positive things going. The challenging side, I think, for me, is the old statement that wealth corrupts,
Mm-hmm.
money corrupts. We see it, and I'm sure you've seen it, that say you want to plan a gathering. I find this more and more. You want to have a gathering? Say, well, let's ask the tribe to see how much they'll give us for the gathering. And then they go to the board, and the board is generous and respectful, and they say, well, yes, we can help you. And they help you.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to the insight of all of us that have participated in that? And I'm the beneficiary of that in all the things that we try to do. What does that do? Whereas in the old days, it would be the slow fundraising efforts and everybody chipping in, and you finally get a little capital. Just think of what your mom and dad, all the work, to establish the church and all the outreach of the church and all the old efforts. Whereas now I can go to the board, and say, oh, help us, please help us, and they're very generous.
Mm-hmm.
They have the money, that they'll help you. What does that do to us? It's something different, and you hear the old timers say this.
Mm-hmm.
Say there's something happening, or whereas there used to be so many volunteer efforts to do things here when the people didn't have so much, now the old timers say, well, nobody will do anything now except for $1.
Expect to get paid, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that's quite a generational change,
Mm-hmm.
to come into all this wealth and the possibility of being paid for everything. So volunteerism is gone. And then the problem is, why should I do this for free when somebody else is getting a lot for this? Or that other people are getting more than I am?
Mm-hmm.
And there's all this going on that we hear all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're getting a bigger salary than me, and the tribe has all this money. And it becomes like, the tribe becomes like just an enormous bank or something, an enormous purse, and everybody just wants to dip in. And instead of, what can I do, to make things better? Can I do? Is this totally paralyzing? Isn't it? It's an irony.
Mm-hmm.
Is you're moving into prosperity, but it can be paralyzing morally,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense that the initiative is falling off on things that people would just sacrifice their time, their whatever they have, all that. So we're losing and gaining. That seems to me an immense challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I know one thing a lot of people worry about is that the kids are expecting things to be handed to them, because they've never known the tribe not to have money.
Yes.
And the old people say, they remember fondly, remember when we used to have bake sales and things?
Well, yes.
When we used to have dinners and everyone brought food instead of, expecting the tribe to buy the food and hire the cooks and all that sort of thing. Yeah. A lot of people talk about, Hermie talked about that. I told you we videotaped him. He said that they're hoping that they can start to reverse that, instead of the board always saying, okay, we'll give you money for this and we'll give you money for that. So, now wait a minute, we can't be handing out money all the time. You're going to have to rely on yourselves, rely on your family more. But yeah, that's true.
And I don't know, it's a tremendous challenge for the board, whether they say, well, we'll match you, you work that much, we'll match you. I don't know how they're going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The other part that I always wonder about, and I'd have to talk to Hermie, and see what their planning is. I don't know how much from the revenues that they are able to put into safe funds for the next 3, 4, 5 generations or 7 generations, so that this money is simply there in perpetuity for the coming generations' education, all that. What I've run into, and I don't mean to be speaking out of turn because I don't know all the tribal planning here, and I know people are trying a lot of different angles to do their best, but I see that as a challenge too. Is right now things are, a lot of money coming in, but we don't know what's down the lane, and hopefully there could be something for the next generations to come. That would be something I would really wonder about, and I'm not sure how the tribe's handling that. What I've run into before on that was that generally it's pretty much, let's take care of right now. This amount of money's coming in, give it all back out in terms of jobs and per capita payments and all that. So whatever comes in goes out. And there isn't enough trust sometimes between the people and the board. The board can say, well, yeah, we can't give it all out because we're investing substantial amounts of it. Well, they say, oh, really? I mean, who's that going to benefit? Or who's skimming off of that? So there isn't a lot of trust. That's what I've run into before. And I don't know how a board works through that to develop trust with the people. No, these are safe investments. These are foundations for our future. it's tremendous planning on the part of the tribe to be looking that far down. I have nothing but respect for that. There's been some real gifted leadership.
Yeah, I think Tulalip's done pretty well with
Yeah.
their leaders.
It's a highly sophisticated tribe. Tremendous resources, but highly sophisticated in their management of resources and planning and all that. So it's got a lot going for it, but it's an immense challenge. And how to explain people that seem to not do well in this situation is something I'd almost rather not talk about, because it sounds like a judgment in some manner, and I'm always afraid of that. Like, we all know, it is from my own family experience, my own experience, that if I do have alcohol in my life and drugs, my life's going to be terribly affected. Not only mine, but everybody around me. So we all know that. And the tribe has made tremendous efforts to open up the doors for people. If they want to find help and find a new life, then the resources are there for them, the expertise. But it's there. And because one of the things that they say is, because you have more money here, you have more expensive drugs. And
That's probably true.
it's a dark, it's a dark side.
Worse drugs, yeah.
It's a dark side. It's built off of personal relationships. Everything is that matters. So it's very important that I be, as much as I can, as a board member, as a communications team, as whatever tribal function, it's very important that I be doing what Landy James used to say so many times, that I need to be walking my talk. So I need to be, whatever my source is of spiritual strength, whatever my source of strength is, I need to be humbly before that all the time, so that, given that I'm always a mix of wonderful and not so wonderful, that still the light will be with me, and that a road will be shown to me. And if I'm doing that kind of homework every day, like they say, the old timers say, you pray when you get before the altar in the morning, your home altar, whatever you go outside, whatever your way is, you swim, you bathe, whatever you need to do to help you walk that road, because that's the very center, to me, of tribal life. If we lose that center, we lose everything. So, and for some it may be, Church of God, might be St. Anne's, Shaker Church, Pentecost, whatever, Mormon, wherever you find that strength, to me that's the most important thing. It's the foundation of everything. And then if I'm trying to follow that, I can't do it perfectly, but I'm just trying, then I find someone else who's doing it. And we can encourage one another. It doesn't mean that we go to the same church or we follow the same old way or anything, but we know and respect that living spirit within one another, that sovereign spirit that is in each one of us, that shows us our way. That's what the old timers could see in us. That's why they respected us. So if I can do that, then I begin to find that relationships of people that are following it. And I feel like if we're working on that together, then we're at the very center of where all the strength is and all the power is for the future of the people. And that becomes quite a few relationships of respect. And that is the very marrow of the bone of the tribe. It's the very heart of it. And then things have a chance of remaining intact, like the respect for the old-timers, genuine respect for the little ones, those kind of things. Of these people following the sovereign spirit within them, respect for the others, then the tribe has a chance for a future. But without that very center, there won't be any future. Because what attacks that, the forces that attack that are so many. And that's why somehow your people were able to survive decimation by the diseases brought from Europe, and all this onslaught of immigrant people pushing you and shoving you around and pushing you into places and saying you no longer belonged here on your own, where you've been here for thousands of years, that your ancestors had enough power within them to survive that. But I think it was that sovereign relationship they had with the Spirit for thousands of years that kept them going. And they would pick up strength from the churches. But the core is their core, is their spirit. And they'd pick up strength, from Catholic Church or Church of God, or wherever. They'll pull in that strength and shake from the smokehouse. But it gives them their spiritual strength, their center. And I know this sounds probably ethereal, but I believe that without that, it's a bit of a facade. So that if say we, and I'm including myself, any of us who are in positions of responsibility where the young people are looking at us, whether here I am a priest, you're in journalism, the board members are board members, we're all in this together, where the young are looking at us. If I'm not following that, then anything I say is fairly irrelevant to them, because they'll know it's a sham. But if I am following that, they may not accept it right away, or they'll say, no, I don't want to do that, or I'm going to follow something else, because people are learning all the time. But it's there. But if we don't have that, and if we don't have, it's some kind of respect for ourselves, some kind of forgiveness for ourselves, and some kind of honesty with ourselves, I don't think we'll make it. But I think that you have within your tribe, given all the complex social problems, you still have a core of people who are like moving along, and they have relationship with one another of respect, and they have the spiritual strength. And I believe that doesn't solve everything, but it's a way through. It's the way your people made it through the last 150 years, 200 years. Because you were supposed to be gone by 1900s. It was so devastating what was happening that they said you were not going to be here, which was just fine with most of the settlers, Not with all of them, because a lot of them had married in and everything. But a lot of them, that'd be just fine, because it's just less people to contend with over the resources. But you're here, and you're growing. Your numbers are growing, and you do have this strength within you, and I see it all over in different individuals. You know, you can say, well, look at this house, you know, boarded up, police have shot through the place. You know, we've all been to these scenes. Windows busted, cars' windows busted, family smithereens. It's a nightmare, a total nightmare. You've got another house where you've got people that maybe went through that once when they were younger, but they're not doing that anymore. And they're trying to make a life for their grandchildren, and they're trying to recover the spiritual center of themselves and move with it in a noble manner. I know these are my friends, and I'm one of them. I'm one of them, because I've been there. I've done really awful things that I'm not proud of. But we all have this chance to, you know, to get up and dust off, as the grandma say, just dust off, or have somebody dust you off and get going again. And that to me is our hope as friends and relatives.